Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Cinema A to B. Alec, today we're going to talk shop on David Fincher's latest. This is The Killer. It's good to get some vintage Fincher here on the pod, and I use that word for a reason, but I'm going to let you go ahead and kick us off on The Killer starring Michael Fassbender.
Obviously, I watched this at home on my 65-inch, through Netflix and stuff. I think it did get a small limited release.
I think in New York or something like that, probably, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously didn't come near me, or if it did, I'd completely missed it. So, we had lights off, phones down. I was ready. I really do like David Fincher a lot, and I was kind of prepared to just go and enjoy. And I'm going to say for the most part, I really did enjoy this film. It's flawed in a lot of respects. And while it kept my attention, I feel like it's kind of trying to be like a John Wick without the action, in a lot of ways, like some of the storyline stuff. And I think it tries to be a little too much than what it is. And, there's some typical tropes, and common, story beats that are in it. And it didn't do anything special in my regard. I never was like, oh my goodness, look at what he just did. This was like a by the numbers kind of a thing with one or two small different beats. I could go on, but I'm going to stop and see what your thoughts are, because your face is really making me want to know.
For the most part, I agree with you. And
okay,
now this film does do some things really uniquely with its edit.
Yes,
and especially the sound editing is very unique. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen anything that quite does what this does with some of these scenes, and the way they really play with maximizing audio and jumping. I'm kind of on the fence with it. I think there are places where it worked really well, and then there were some other times where it kind of frankly took me out of the scene. And that opening sequence with him is, I think at the start I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. But then when the music's fading back down, I was like, no, I want that music up at max volume, because it's such a cool track anyway. And
yeah,
it just, they played with that pretty much the entire time. And eventually it kind of got to be a little bit heavy-handed. All in all, though, I do enjoy the movie. I do. It's cool to see Fassbender in a role like this. He's excellent. He's more than capable of commanding the screen in a role like this. You can't take your eyes off of him. In fact, watching it, I'm kind of thinking, I love Daniel Craig as Bond, but I think Fassbender could have given us just as good a Bond as Craig. I really believe that. And unfortunately now I just think he's kind of aged out of being in contention for something like that. But it's cool to see him in this. And you're right. The John Wick comparison is completely fair. In fact, I was thinking that the whole time. I was like, oh, this is like a believable John Wick. This is kind of what it would really look like and feel like. And so from that standpoint, it's kind of novel. But it never, other than that kind of penultimate fight sequence, it never really got its legs under it for me. And then the ending's kind of flat. It didn't really know where to go and where to wrap things up. But I still appreciate it, still enjoyed it. And oddly enough, I'll probably still watch this again, because it offers some unique things. And it's Fincher, and it feels like vintage Fincher in a lot of ways. The VO narration is a total throwback to Fight Club. And then the lighting scheme where he won't. I'm going to get into that later. I want to bounce it back to you, but there's some things I'd love to kind of point out that what makes a Fincher film, and this definitely is one.
Yeah. So I'm going to touch on, basically the opening scene, I was all for, where it's basically just him in that room kind of setting up shop and doing the VO narration. and we're not gonna do spoilers, but like there's some things I'm gonna have to talk about. But I was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to be doing? Like, I was so kind of not enthralled, but I was definitely like on board to see where Fincher was going to take it. And it's actually when we leave that room that I start to not care, and not care, but where it starts to go on the rails a little bit of like, instead of being this very interesting piece of dealing with how this guy's dealing with everything, it becomes much more kind of the tropish, like John Wick kind of style stuff. Like, so I almost was like, what would have this been if it was just him in a room the entire movie waiting for this? Like that. And like with just VO narration, because I mean, it's like 20, 30 minutes before anyone says anything, like outside of the VO narration. And I'm like, what if that was the movie? Like, what would that have been?
Yeah, so, I thought it was going that way, actually. Now that you mention it, yeah. I thought that it was a distinct possibility that this could look like, I don't know, like a movie like Phone Booth or something like that, where we're basically isolated in the same location. And I would have been completely fine with that. But yeah, or
Rear Window, Hitchcockian kind of a feel.
It felt very Rear Window to begin with. It was definitely a callback to that, because Fincher's, as far as I know, pretty big Hitchcock fan. I mean, who isn't? I mean, yeah. But yeah, it had serious Rear Window vibes. And so I probably would have been okay kind of staying in that space, but that obviously that's not where it goes. And I won't give away why it doesn't stay there, but needless to say, it doesn't stay there, past the first 20 or 30 minutes. But yeah, there were some interesting things that they did. The cinematography is stunning, and it's meticulous. It's classic Fincher, and there's, his big telltale signature when it comes to the way he shoots his movies is really how he lights stuff. He's like this director. He just gets away with it, and I'm here for it.
I'm okay with it.
Is that he won't light the actor's eyes. Everybody's eyes are usually in shadow. They don't give off the reflection. And so you'd think people would look like dead because he doesn't light, but that's not really what happens. It just has a really kind of singular aesthetic, and he's been doing that pretty much the entire time. The first time I think I ever really noticed it was Fight Club. So he does that, a lot of gold hues, and it's kind of the classic golden teal look. And he loves lighting stuff with sodium vapor style, kind of golden street lighting. Everything's always really crisp. It's a beautiful image. And he does really good things when it comes to camera movement. Fincher doesn't move the camera unless he feels like it's going to really help. And he's very good at giving you really interesting classic pans where the camera's on a tripod. He actually shoots a ton on a tripod, believe it or not. Like if you go behind the scenes of Fincher, it's usually locked down on some big either dolly or it's on a massive tripod. He doesn't particularly like handheld. So you're not really going to get that unless I think some of the fight sequence probably is handheld because you're in a confined space. By the way, I thought that sequence ran circles around anything in John Wick.
Well, especially the fourth John Wick, or the one that we talked about already.
Between the choreography and the sound design was incredible. Like there was a whole other thing going on there besides them just mimicking, punches and glass flying and whatever else. There was other textures under there that really gave it something extra. But yeah, the movie just doesn't quite. It's too much of it's almost too much of a slow burn for its own good.
And I think you hit it right. Like the ending kind of doesn't really feel like a paid off. And it's one of those things in a script where I feel like they've got 80% of a great story, or at least 80% of a good story. And it's that final last 20% that they didn't know how to really truly wrap up. So they just kind of did. And so I walked away going, like again, not bad. I liked it. I liked it a lot. Like I walked away going, I like this movie, but it didn't finish well. Like it ends just, like the payoff is not there. I don't care enough, or I don't know. There's something that's missing. I do feel it's a little long, as well. Like there's a couple points I think we could probably cut out, probably a good 10 minutes that could cut out from this film. But I will say I did really like going back to the sound design and the soundtrack itself. And obviously here is another director who is working with a, sound guy again. I mean, this is David Fincher working with Trent Reznor again for doing stuff that he did with, I know on The Social Network when he did the Facebook movie. That's when he first worked with Trent Reznor. But I think it's great. I mean, the fact that they're using basically, I think it's the Smiths, the band, for pretty much everything, and everything's kind of done through the iPod. So I thought that was really cool. Again, I did feel like they used the kind of the trope a little bit of having like the sound be like the ambient nature and then going into the earbud or coming from the earbud out into nature was a little too much. One too many times.
And I think it was supposed to be jarring. And then this does have a lot in common with John Wick in the fact that it is based off a graphic novel of the same title. So I'm not familiar with that graphic novel, so I don't know how closely or not closely this is to the source material. But it's enjoyable, and Fassbender is the big reason why. He's always commanded the screen really well. Going back to Inglourious Bastards and Prometheus, and I've always enjoyed him, whatever he's in. In fact, I don't think I've ever really seen him in stuff that, I don't know, it just feels like there's roles that he loses out on to somebody else. That he feels like he's competing against like Bale, and Bale's only getting the roles that DiCaprio passes on. So it's like Fassbender's probably, down on that list, but he's tremendous. I mean, he's absolutely tremendous. The way he moves, the way he carries himself, excellent choice. My big issue with where this movie goes to is I don't know that I actually get moments in the film that change his arc the way that it's supposed to be.
The first John Wick did.
It doesn't feel rushed. It's just not enough different things feel like they're happening. Other than that, maybe that one big moment that starts to move him in that other direction. But that's kind of largely why I think the end doesn't feel quite right to me. Although there is, I don't want to give it away, but I mean, there is that tick.
Yeah.
And so that felt a little bit better, but
this is one of the reasons why it kind of fell flat as well, is that I would basically say that he is the same person that he was from beginning to end. He experienced some things, he did some things due to something that happened, but him as a person did not change.
And maybe that's that's supposed to be it, but and I think we just gave it all away. But it's on Netflix.
Go watch it. Go on Netflix.
But no, I think you're right. And maybe that was the whole point, that the expectation is that you want him to undergo much more of a change than maybe what occurs. But I don't think that fixes some of the issues that I have with it.
No, it certainly doesn't, but had far less action than John Wick 1. But yet it didn't give me like the emotional beats. And I will say the acting by Fassbender is great, even though it's played very straight, very neutral most of the time. Like his range of emotion is not very large. And a lot of people are like, that should be super easy to do. That should not be difficult. No, as an actor, you want to emote. You want to inflect things. It's like the same thing with Damon in the CIA movie that the name escapes me at the moment. The Good Shepherd, where he plays it so one note. They're like, this is not Damon. He sucks. This is terrible. And I'm like, no, actually, if you look at all of what he else done, that's what comes natural. This is forcing himself not to emote. And I think Fassbender, you look at a lot of his other stuff. Yeah, I mean, he plays Magneto. Yeah, he played that guy, but he definitely emotes. He's gotten a range of emotions that he not lacks here, but he's suppressing, but yet still getting across those kind of those emotional beats of anger or sadness or grief or whatever, and those kind of things, but yet keeping it contained. That's that, like you said, that's what the character does, is doing that. And you can definitely tell there's actors who can't emote, and that's how they are, and that's terrible acting. But this is not what Fassbender's doing. Fassbender's a fantastic actor, and you can tell that by the way he's doing it. It's because it's not uninteresting. It is not a joy to watch. It's not the right word, but I was like very impressed with his performance with this role, even though it was so kind of similar throughout the movie.
Yeah, and he's always had really good screen presence, and he's a guy that can act a scene really well through his eyes. He can emote through his eyes. And yeah, this is a slow burn, and the character's kind of a slow, smoldering burn underneath of a composed exterior, and he plays that really well. And yeah, the whole thing is, yeah, I kind of agree with you that it's probably 10 minutes too long, but I think that has more to do with maybe what's happening or what's not happening, maybe stuff that they didn't give us to get us from A to B to C, than it is just sheer runtime. Because the whole thing, for the most part, is fairly taut as far as the way it's shot and the way it's cut, and the kind of the chapter marks they give you, kind of delineated, defined. They didn't lean on the whole graphic novel thing. In fact, I didn't even know that while I was watching it. So I try to go into these things pretty cold if I can. I don't like to study up.
Yeah.
And research it to death. I've been a massive Fincher fan for a long time. And the beginning, especially, I was getting very Fight Club vibes from it. And I think it was because of the narration. And then just the whole, it's not as green looking as Fight Club, but the lighting style's basically the same. He lights his stuff pretty much the same. I mean, Social Network, you can tell there's a similar cinematography to this. Like, he's kind of kept that look largely, except for something maybe like Mank, the black and white, which I still haven't seen that, but most of his stuff kind of has this look. They're darker, certainly just a visually darker image for the most part.
Which is fun. I mean, one of the reasons why I really liked the first season of House of Cards, because it had that Fincher look of that, and when you're doing a pessimistic view of DC, or in some cases, maybe a realistic view of DC, but, that darker look, like you're looking more at the underbelly of politics, and like that, it kind of needed that feel. And I really, really, really enjoyed it. But I don't know, like with this film, like I got to go back and there's so much that I liked about this. And I went in with not high expectations, but I went in with definitely like wanting to like it. So I don't know how much of that me actually enjoying this film is me wanting to like it and appreciating all those factors that are Fincher, or did I actually really do like it and just feel like it fell flat. And I will say too, he does a great job of using those jump cuts to kind of pass time quickly, so you're not just sitting there. And it makes it easier to tell that, hey, time has passed or whatever. And I mean, I liked it. I mean, like, they were really well done jump cuts. So
yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes I have to take my Fincher fanboy hat off and kind of reevaluate whether I really, I probably actually have to do that more than I do a Nolan film for whatever reason. And that's kind of been the whole complaint from people with Nolan is, are folks willing to take their fanboy or fangirl hat off and truly evaluate his stuff to see if is it really that good, or are you just so enthralled with him as a director that you're just automatically on board? And I've struggled with Fincher before. Another film of his that this has a lot of aesthetic in common is Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which to me is probably the last. Was that before or after Social Network?
That was right after.
So that feels to me that's like their last, maybe one of the last really good movies he's made. And he's made some other stuff too, but this felt like he's kind of willing to get back into the genres that we kind of all love to see him kind of operate in. Although The Social Network's kind of a outlier in that regard. But this darker source material is kind of where he seems to thrive. So I think some of it was just me getting giddy that certain scenes were reminiscent of kind of vintage Fincher from 10, 15 years ago. So I kind of wrestle with that too. It's like
kind of getting back to his roots. I feel like the same way with like Guy Ritchie with Rock and Rolla when it came out. It was kind of like he had done like Revolver, and someone was like, "This is I'm not really enjoying this," and then all of a sudden Rock and Rolla comes out, and I'm like, "Oh, it's like Snatch again! Yeah, we're super excited!" And I mean, Rock and Roll is fine, but it's definitely not as good as Snatch. But I think it's kind of like that same feeling of going back and like recapturing some of that enjoyment you get from a director.
And it's a struggle too. So it reminds me of like, an artist you really like and their first album's amazing. And then their second album, they go off in a different direction. And then, by album 3 or 4, they decide, well, our sales aren't really that great. So we're going to go back and we're going to release an album that sounds like our first one. And as a fan, you're like, oh, this is amazing. This sounds like the first album. But then it's like, well, was it really that good though? Yeah. So I know these guys struggle with that because it's, you want to stay fresh and work on material that gets you excited. But I certainly think for anyone that's listening that's a Fincher fan, they've probably already seen this. And I think most Fincher fans will enjoy this. Is it the best thing ever? No. Is it deserving of like a Netflix release as opposed to like a big theatrical? Probably. I can't see this doing well had it had like a 3,000 theater release. Like it would have gotten buried. It's rated R. These things just don't do that well anymore, unfortunately.
No, we're coming to a head on changing of how theaters do movies, I think, and how new movies really get out there. Because
I just wish Netflix, we've talked about this before, but I think it bears repeating. I just wish Netflix and Prime and the rest of them had better direct deals with AMC and Regal where these things would come in for a week or two nationwide before they bumped off into the streaming and give me, 2 or 3 weeks to get in and watch it if it was something that I was, excited about. Because I probably would have, I don't know if I would have seen this on the big screen or not. I saw it here at on the projector, so it was pretty close. It's tough. I mean, I'm still trying to get a date night to go watch Killers of the Flower Moon, and then I told Gwen today I'm sneaking off in the next week in the evening to go watch Napoleon. So ideally in IMAX or Dolby Cinema, but it's tough. It's tough to get away.
I mean, and I don't have kids, and it's still tough, Yeah,
I was talking to Vlad last night or today. And he was saying the same thing. It's like, it's just tough to get away.
Again, I think some of the lacking is the script. Not so much the dialogue. I think the dialogue is actually done really, really well. What little of it there is, I really enjoyed it. So I wasn't really, mad about that. But
yeah, I mean, Tilda Swinton was a nice choice. Oh, yeah. And it's really smart. You get her where she only probably has to work for what looked like maybe a couple days, right? I saw that she was going to be in it, and it made sense where they put her in the kind of the grand scheme of things. Yeah. And then I did recognize Charles Parnell from Top Gun Maverick. He plays the lawyer Hodges, and again another kind of situation where it's just like, looked like they could have shot that in a day or two with him. Yep. So.
I mean, pretty much everything except for Fassbender's role could be done in a day or two. Like everybody else, it's, except for the fight scene, that was probably they probably shot it in a day or two.
That's probably closer to, I think that was a week. That looked like a week of shooting. Yeah. That thing was, folks.
Intense.
If you watch it just for the fight, I think you'll be completely entertained. I mean, the MTV Movie Awards used to give fight of the year. I don't know if they still do that. I don't watch MTV anymore, but this looks like fight of the year. And I might start having to bring those categories back for us on the podcast. Presenting Cinema A to B's fight of the year. I'm nominating The Killer. Because that was wild. Right. That was wild.
There's more things I want to talk about, but I also don't want to spoil it too much. In regards, I know we've already.
It's too new for us to do like a deep dive and kind of ruin it for people. Especially since one of our main goals with doing this, obviously, is for you and I to have fun discussions on stuff we've seen, but I kind of use it as a platform to just keep people to consume more stuff. And
I'm saying, that it's not great, but this is it, much like how we talked about, oh my goodness, what I can't even think about. The Creator. Like it's still a good movie. Like I still really enjoyed it. It's just not a great movie.
And that's a fair comparison as far as how I kind of feel about this. Although I'd probably be more apt to sit down and watch this again than The Creator, to be perfectly honest with you.
This is where we differ a little bit. I think I would be more apt to watch The Creator again than this. I don't know. Like, this is good. And like the little sci-fi nature.
The more I've thought about The Creator, the less I like it. So like we already did our episode. We're not going to revisit that. But yeah, the more I've kind of thought about that film, the less I like about it. So,
and I will say The Killer has less flaw. And right now, as I'm feeling about it, less flaws than The Creator. The Creator is more
I think
flawed.
The Killer knows what it is more.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And doesn't try to overreach. And I think The Creator had grand visions of illusions of grandeur. To quote
Han Solo.
Han, yeah.
Yes. I do. Yes, I absolutely agree with it. I think the script writers really definitely tried to make things happen in The Creator, where I think, not in The Killer, sorry, in The Creator, they try to make things happen that really just didn't feel right. Where it's here, they think they didn't know how to land it, and so they, not try to push it somewhere, but just kind of like, well, here, this is the ending, and it was just like,
maybe we get, if it's a graphic novel, maybe we get another one of these. I don't know. I don't know how much, Netflix is notorious for hiding how much stuff cost.
Yeah.
To make, and this is no exception. The budget is completely left off of the Internet Movie Database. Although it made a little more than $400,000 at the box office, which I don't know how many theaters it was in, but
oh my goodness, yeah, I'm getting that it was like about $175 million.
Really?
And I'm saying that like I'm getting that from Reddit. So like let's keep that in mind. But so maybe $110 million is where it's.
Well, I see where you've got 175. So
yeah, somewhere
between 100 and 175 million dollars. I just can't believe this stuff's that expensive now. But
no, there's no way that's $100 million.
And it was shot on. Like everything that Fincher shoots now, it's shot on the Red cameras, the Komodo, and Red Raptor, which shoots it between 6K and 8K resolution, and then they master it at 4K. So it's a very crisp image, and Red cameras have come so far now. I used to be able to kind of tell whether something was shot on Red because the skin tones didn't ever look very good, but that's not the case anymore. They're great format, and he's been loyal to them from the beginning. Whatever he's asked for, they've given him as far as the Red cameras for Fincher. In fact, he shot one of my favorite music videos is Suit and Tie with Timberlake. And it's black and white, and it was shot on the Red camera that he had them make him that only had sensors programmed for black and white. And so it's beautiful. It's incredible. And he used that camera for Mank. Yeah. To shoot Mank on. So he's in tight with Red, probably their biggest director by far. that's kind of loyal to red cinema. So just an aside, but you have any parting thoughts or shots for the killer?
So, again, it sounds like I'm like, so
no.
What I would say is, much like you, I'm excited to see Fincher doing something similar to what he's done in the past, something more akin to, say, The Game or the Fight Club or Zodiac, something darker, something with a little more weight to it. Not that like Gone Girl or Mindhunter, like those are dark and stuff, but this, I don't know, like there's definitely a different kind of genre feel to this than those. I want him to do more. I think he's brilliant. I think this probably could have done a little bit, another rewrite of some things, and I think it would have been better. But again, I enjoyed it. I walked away liking it and happy I watched it. And like you, probably will watch it again at some point.
Yeah, if I don't cancel my Netflix subscription. Yeah, which is under consideration, but that's a conversation for another day.
But there's so many good Christmas movies that they've brought out, buddy. There's with the Hollywood Christmas, that may actually not be a thing, but like there's Christmas in the Mountains. There's this Christmas with candles and the Princess Christmas. I don't know. Like we were cycling through it a couple days ago, and it was just like, my goodness, what? Like, first off, I could have done a bunch of these films. Like, that's my acting career right there. Like, why couldn't I have done that?
You could have, yeah. Yep.
Man.
Yeah. The classic, it's the same pattern as a Hallmark movie. Just, classic corporate bigwig gal, hot shot from the city, goes back to her small hometown in Vermont or New Hampshire and falls in love with a maple syrup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
They never go to the city. They always go to some rural
they
town.
leave the city. Yeah. They leave the city, go back to her hometown where she's, viewed as, too good for everybody. And then she falls in love with a local guy and
gives it all up.
Yeah.
So
it's the same plot.
To sell.
We should write one. We should write one.
Oh, I'm sure we could. I'm sure we
we're
revive our production company. We could do it.
All right. Sell it off. Well, I'm going to wrap us up. I appreciate everybody listening to the podcast as we devolve into Hallmark Christmas movies. But no, we thank you for listening, and we will catch you next week for another episode. And based on this one, man, we're getting close to 50 episodes.
Exciting.
I think this will end up being 47 or 48. So
depending on where we drop it.
And then we're going to go ahead and start teasing it. We will do a live episode for number 50. And I don't know exactly where that's going to fall. As it gets closer, we'll tease it, and I'm going to try to do a live onto Facebook and YouTube, our YouTube channel, and do both of those for our 50th episode. So all 12 of you can tune in and listen. Yeah. No, but thank you for listening. We hope you have a great week.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.